This Let's Edit with Media Composer tutorial is brought to you by VideoGuys.com, the leading reseller of video editing and production equipment for more than 25 years. Check out VideoGuys.com for great deals on Avid Media Composer software licenses, subscriptions, and upgrades, and use coupon code MC101 for 5% off any purchase. Hey everyone, Kevin P McAuliffe here, and I am back again with another Media Composer 101 tutorial. And in this lesson, in our next part in our look at editing music videos, we're going to talk again about doing a multi-camera edit. But in this lesson, we're going to talk more specifically about the multicam feature inside of Media Composer and sort of the ideal situation that you want to find yourself in when getting set up to do this type of edit. And of course, I'm talking about having your footage synced up with timecode on each clip. Now we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about sort of the not so ideal situation of having to put in points into your clips to sync up that way. And then we're going to get in, we're just going to talk a little bit about fluidity in your timeline and how to set things up so that it's the easiest possible way that you can have it so that your edits go as smoothly as possible. Okay, short introduction here. Let's just get into Media Composer and let's get started. Okay, now before we get started, I do want to make sure that I give a shout out to the awesome team at Edit Stock. Now, of course, we're going to be using Edit Stock footage when I'm showing you how to get in and cut a multi-camera music video edit. And let's just say hypothetically you've been hired to cut your very first music video and you need some footage to get in and practice with. Well, guess what? Edit Stock has not only some great music video footage, but they have footage from all kinds of different productions, including green screen productions, as you can see right here, that you can get in and purchase for a very reasonable price to get in and practice all of this work before you actually get in and do it for real. Now, of course, the footage that we're going to be using is I'm just going to come down to the music video section, and you can see it right here. It's called Too Fast, Too Close by the Lexingtons, and you can see, very reasonable, $20 to have an absolute ton of footage with all different multi-camera angles, as well as specifically shot footage that's not part of the multi-camera edit, but just some excellent additional footage that you'll be able to use when creating your own version of this music video. Okay, so now let's get into Media Composer. So what I'm going to do is simply Command and Tab into Media Composer. Now, the first thing that I'm going to encourage you to do is once you've taken your footage from whatever source you happen to be getting it from, whether it's DSLR, whether you're digitizing it from a tape deck, the first and probably most important thing to do is don't have your footage called things like 001, 002, which if you'll remember from the last lesson, that's pretty much how all of my footage was labeled. There was really no consistency, really no way for me to know exactly what was going on with that footage. And it's going to become important, you'll see in just a second. You'll see that all that I've done is I've come through and I've given logical names to each one of the clips. You'll see that we have the keyboard's close-up, and again, nothing fancy here, just the keyboard's close-up. Now, like I said, I tried to be pretty specific with what each clip was, and you'll see why, like I said, in just a second here. Okay. Now, the other thing that you're going to notice that's a little bit different about my footage than the way that it looked before is I've actually done the legwork of going in and assigning time codes to each one of these shots, which required a lot of back timing on my part because when the footage came to me, it didn't have any of that. Now, that's why I wanted to show you Pluralize in the first lesson. Perfect example. You're going to have, time codes that don't match up, and maybe you need to get stuff done super quick. That's where an application like Pluralize can come into play, or you're going to be able to use the technique that I'm going to show you in just a second. But you know what? If you have the budget and you've got footage that's going to come in on DSLR that's not going to have timecode with it, again, take my recommendation and invest the money in your budget to get Pluralize to cut in and get to the heart of your edit as quickly as possible. But now, right now, we're talking about the most ideal situation. And the most ideal situation is that you've been given all of your footage with timecode. So how are we going to get in and sync all of this footage up? Well, it's actually very easy. All you need to do is to select all of your clips. Now in this case, I'm going to select all of my video clips as well as the master audio track that goes with it. And all I'm going to do is simply navigate up to bin, and I'm going to come down to group clips. Once I select group clips, a new window is going to appear that's going to be basically asking me, well, how do you want to go about grouping these clips? Do you have film timecode or sound timecode, which you can see right now is grayed out, which is fine. We're not going to be using that anyways. Do I want to use an in point? Do I want to use an out point? Or do I want to use the source timecode? Now you'll see that I can use auxiliary timecode as well. But in the first example that I want to show you, I'm going to be using, quite simply, source timecode. All I'm going to do is basically say OK, and you're going to see that a new group is created right now. It's just called Keyboards Close-Up because that's the first clip that was there. All I'm going to do is I'm going to call this Multicamera with timecode. Because, again, like I said, the next example is that if I come in, and you'll see that what I've actually done here, just to make my life a little bit easier, is I've added locators. Now, this one doesn't need one because we're going to take it right from the start, but I've added locators in here where each one of the endpoints is going to need to go. And you'll see that if I come back here, there we go. I've actually marked the endpoints in here already, just to save a little bit of time. Let's just make sure that they're all lined up. Perfect. And what I'm going to do, again, the exact same technique. I'm simply going to select all the clips. I'm going to navigate up to bin. I'm simply going to come down to group clips. And in this case, I'm going to group them by endpoints. I'm simply going to say OK. And the reason that I'm doing this, I'm just going to copy this here. And I'm going to paste it in here. We'll call this Multicam with endpoints. Because what I want to do is just create a couple sequences here. Again, just make the whole sequence just like such. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the one with endpoints. Okay, there we go. And we'll just call this Multicamera with endpoints. We'll call this Multicamera with timecode. Because I really just want to show you that at the end of the day, once I switch to multi-camera mode and I come back and I hit play on the keyboard, you'll see that everything, and we can really take a look at the guitar player right here to see how the sync goes, and even with my drummer here. Okay. Now this one is the multi-camera with timecode, and you'll see that if I select the multi-camera with endpoints here and I come back to the exact same thing, everything's lined up the same. Now obviously the main difference really is time. Time is the main difference. With the timecode option, literally it's select your clips, go up, group them, done. If you're using the endpoint method, basically what you're going to need to do is to listen to each one of your clips, find a point where, in this case, the music happens to start, mark an endpoint. Now, you know what? For 9 clips, it's not too bad. But if you're dealing with, 20 clips, 30 clips, that can be a bit of a problem, especially if you start getting into clips that have broken timecode. Because in the ideal situation, your camera operator is going to set that camera up, or set those cameras up, because obviously we're talking about a multi-camera edit. They're going to start that camera rolling and keep it rolling for the entire length of time that music track goes on for. Okay, so let's come back here for a second. I'm just going to remove my endpoints one because we've pretty much seen that everything is exactly the same. Okay, now let's just double click on my sequence here. Now as you can see, obviously the first thing that we're going to need to actually get into multi-camera mode is an option over here that's located in my composer window. Now I have it located in the composer window, but you can have it as a shortcut on your keyboard as well. What I want to do is just call up the command palette here for a second, because inside of the command palette, I'm just going to switch to the button-to-button reassignment. We actually have a category for multi-camera, and one of the options we have is the 9-camera split, which you'll see is the split that I have located right over here. Now what I also have set up for the purposes of what we're doing, I'm just going to come to my settings here, I'm just going to come into keyboard. You'll see that nowhere on my keyboard is my multi-camera camera angle setup. Now I'll be honest with you, this is one thing that I loved about Final Cut Pro 7, Final Cut Pro 7, not Final Cut Pro 10, was the fact that I could actually map the numeric pad on the keyboard, because I used that all the time. I actually had pretty much all my multi-camera angles mapped to that the numeric pad on my keyboard, and it was so simple to use. In Media Composer, I don't have that option. I only have the main keyboard as my option, but I do have the ability to go in and simply hold Shift on the keyboard. And what I've done is I've assigned the multi-camera angles basically to be Shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now, what I'm going to do is just close the command palette. There we go. And you'll see that, again, like I said, I've assigned it right over here into the composer window, the 9-camera split. So when you drop your multi-group into your timeline, it's going to look like you only have one camera angle. But like I said, you don't, because as soon as I hit the 9-camera split, you're going to see here are all my different camera angles, including my audio track that I threw in there, because I only have 8 video tracks. So I threw that in there as the 9th camera angle. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, let me show you. Well, you heard that when I hit play on the keyboard and I played this wasn't really the final audio that I wanted to use. I really wanted to use the main audio track, the Good Audio CD quality audio track. Now, of course, I could have done what I did in the previous tutorial, which was to take that, find where it's supposed to go and edit it in. Or what I could do, because it is synced up with all of the other camera angles, is I can simply swap that either in the timeline or right up here, actually in the upper left-hand corner of the preview window. Now, to do it in the timeline, very simple. All you need to do is simply right-click on the audio track that you want to switch the audio for. And I can just come right down to Master Music Track right there and then do the exact same thing again. Now, what I'm going to do, just for the purposes of what we're doing, is I'm just going to lower the audio here because that audio is pretty loud. So let's put it down around -10 here. And you'll hear that if I come back and hit play now, that sounds much better. Now, of course, if I wanted to adjust this not from the timeline, but right up here in the preview window, what I could do is I could simply navigate right up here to the multi-group icon. I can simply click on it, and you'll see right down here under A1, I can really switch that track. Now, what I'm going to do is just turn waveform off here a second, just so that you can really easily see the master music track here. And you'll see again that I can come up and I can really switch that to be whatever I want it to be. Now, it's also very cool, I'm just going to switch that back to the master music track, is that if I don't want to start on the keyboard with the multi-camera edit and I want a specific camera angle to start it, I can do that as well. Let's just say I wanted to have it start with, I don't know, the guitar player. Let's just have it start with the guitar player in the medium shot. Boom, there we go. And I can now simply just come back and hit play. Now, you're going to see that not all of my camera angles start the same. They don't start at the same location, but that's okay. Because with the audio waveform on, I can see exactly where my final audio starts. And we can bring it back just a little bit before that here, right to about there. And we'll just remove all of the sort of filler at the top of that. Now I can simply hit play, and you'll hear, there we go. And everything is looking pretty darn good. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a multi-camera edit. I'm going to show you two techniques that you can use to do it. One is simply using the mouse. The other is, of course, using the keyboard. So let's just cue this right back up to the beginning here. All I'm going to do is simply hit play. You'll see, of course, we're starting with our guitar player, which is fine. We want to go to our singer here, go back to our guitar player, and then, of course, we're going to want to go to our drummer. And you'll see that every time, of course, I'm clicking a different camera angle, nothing seems to be happening in my timeline. Well, nothing is going to happen in my timeline until I hit stop on the keyboard. And as soon as I hit stop on the keyboard, all of the edits are now going to appear. Now, there's something that's exceptionally important to keep in mind. If you're not happy with one of the edits that you've done in the multicam, do not undo what you just did. Because if I undo that, what's important to keep in mind is that once I undo that, it's actually going to undo everything, because that entire multicam edit was considered one event or one item. And as soon as I undo it, everything's going to disappear. Now you're going to notice that something else very cool happened. As soon as I hit Command on the Mac, Control on Windows, if I want to know what each of these camera angles actually is, if I simply hit that on the keyboard, you'll see that I'm now shown exactly what each one of these camera angles actually is. A great way, if you sort of are like, oh, I don't remember which, I mean, obviously in this case, because I've named everything very specific, it's kind of easy to tell. You know, we know that this is the singer medium close-up, but what if you sort of were working on, let's say you're working on a BMX bike race downhill, and you had all these different camera angles of cameras in the forest, and you really couldn't keep track of which one was which. This is a very easy way to get a visual representation of exactly which clip that you happen to have selected. Now what I'm going to do is, of course, I'm just going to undo what I just did to remove all those edits, because I want to show you the other technique, which is, of course, using the keyboard. Now I'm going to use my Shift and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 on the keyboard, not 9, because 9 is, of course, our music track. And we're essentially going to do the exact same edit. Well, probably not the exact same edit, but you sort of get how it works. Now, of course, what's important to keep in mind is that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 on the keyboard. Okay? So all I'm going to do, again, cue it right back to the beginning. I'm going to hit play, and we'll hear our music kick in. And we'll just start hitting some keys here. You'll see, here we go. We'll have our guy dancing there. And I think that's pretty good. What I'm going to do is just stop what I've done. Okay? Now, for the purposes of what we're doing, I could get in and be really more specific with my edits, but I'm okay with this now. Now, what I want to do is I just want to turn the waveform off because I want to talk about what to do in the situation where you want to get in and change some of these edits, because I see people really getting in and kind of going a little bit crazy when they're changing stuff. Now, what I always encourage people to do, and let's just actually step out of multi-camera mode for a second here. What I always see people doing is they kind of get in and they like to come to the clip much like I did when I was changing the audio and right-clicking on the track to change that track. I can do the exact same thing with the video. So for example, if on this clip here, maybe I wanted to switch to him in the, let's just say in that wide shot, what I can do is simply right-click and say, well, that's the guitar player medium shot. Let's just switch to that shot. Okay? Now what's important to keep in mind with this technique is that if I don't really know which shot I want to switch to, you're going to be going through and selecting each one, which can get to be pretty annoying pretty quickly. So what I always tell people to do is when you're ready to get in and alter your edits, always come up and stick yourself back in multi-camera mode. Because what you can also do, depending on how you want to do this, is let's just come back to our singer here, okay? So I'm not really happy with this shot. And what I want to do is I'm just going to switch him to be the, let's switch him to be the close-up of the singer, okay? That medium close-up right there. Now, what I've decided that I want to do is that midway through the close-up of him, I want to cut to that wide shot of him. Well, now we're not going to be right-clicking and selecting the clip that we want because we know that that's going to change the entire clip. But what we can do is with our multi-camera setup, the way that it is, all I need to do is simply move that mouse up to the shot that I want to cut to at this point in my edit and simply click on it, and you'll see that a new edit has been added and that shot has now been put in. This is where we can start to get in and be really specific. So let's come back here. Okay, maybe I don't like that shot there. You know what we're going to do there? We're going to switch to, you know what? I definitely think we need to switch to that dancing shot. So let's switch to the dancing shot of the singer, but at that guitar player shot, midway through, we want to go to this drummer who's going crazy. Let's just simply click on him, and now we got a bit more of a refined edit. Much, much better. So you can see that once you get in and do your initial edit, you don't need to go back and be monkeying around with doing multicam. Oh, let's go back to it. Let's do another pass the multicam and all this stuff. No, this is where you can get in and start to be really specific and really get in and just select the exact clips that you want at the exact point that you want. And it's also very easy to get in. Now in this case, because my waveform doesn't give me a lot of range, a little bit hard to see what's going on, but in many cases with your audio, you'll be able to use the waveform as a great reference for things like that cymbal hit or that tambourine hit to really get in and start refining your edit and really making it look how you want it to look. Okay, now there's one last thing that I want to mention, because what's important to keep in mind is that depending on the type of footage that you're working with, type of drives you're working with, obviously performance is going to vary. So once you're happy with your multi-camera, you don't want to do any more adjustments, the client has locked it off, what we can do is we can commit this multicam so that I can't get back in and alter it, and Media Composer is only going to be looking at each one of these individual clips instead of having access to all of the optional angles. But of course the big question is, how do we get in and do that? Well, of course, most people think that we're going to right-click on our sequence window and we're going to find something in here, or maybe right-click on the sequence and find something down here. But of course, that's not where we're going to find it. What I'm going to do is simply navigate back to the bin where my sequence is located. I'm simply going to right-click on the sequence and I'm going to navigate down to Commit Multicam Edits. Now, of course, I'm going to be warned, all multicam group clips in the selected sequences will be modified. For each group clip, all references to alternate takes will be removed in the sequence, but a copy of the original sequence will be created before it's updated, meaning if you need to go back and make changes, you will always have that option. So all I'm going to do is simply say OK. You're going to notice that a new sequence is being created, called appropriately enough Multicamera with Timecode, no group. Now, of course, Media Composer has also said all the multicam groups were modified in the selected sequences. You'll see now that if I double click, of course, now I don't have any alternate camera angles. You'll see, let's just get out of multi-camera mode here. We'll just come right back here. I can't right click anymore. We now just have individual clips in our timeline. just like we'd done this as a quote-unquote standard edit. But you'll see that our edits are looking pretty good. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up our look at the actual multi-camera component of doing our edit. Now you'll remember, like I said, in the first part of taking a look at editing music videos, I said that we're not going to be talking about the stylistic aspect of editing music videos. Why? Well, because really that differs from editor to editor. And I just want to get in and give you the tools that are going to let you use your own creativity to create some very cool music videos. Now, in our next lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to start creating some stylistic things. And I want to show you not so much the, what is stylistic, but how you can get in and create some very cool things. Now, of course, we're going to be using some third-party effects to do that with, but chances are you might actually already have these third-party tools at your disposal. And I'm going to show you how with a few little simple tips and tricks, you can take the ordinary and really take it to the next level and make it extraordinary and really wow and amaze your clients every time. Now, before I wrap up this lesson, I want to thank our sponsor Video Guys, and don't forget to check them out and use coupon code MC101 for 5% off your Avid purchase or any other purchase including G Technology storage, software plugins, and so much more. And if you like this tutorial, please click that subscribe button, and don't forget that if you have any questions, you have any comments, or you have any tutorial requests, you can post them in the comment section below this lesson, or you can send them to kevinpmcauliffe@gmail.com. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.